In 1974, an economist sketched a curve on a restaurant napkin, the idea that taxing people too heavily can actually shrink government revenue. It became one of the most cited ideas in modern fiscal policy, but 600 years earlier, a bankrupt North African judge had already noticed the same pattern as one small piece of a much bigger theory, a theory about why every empire, without exception, carries the seed of its own collapse. His name was Ibn Khaldun, Tunis, 1332. Diplomat, judge, and, for one miserable stretch, a prisoner, betrayed by the rulers he'd served. It was during a period of political exile, holed up in a castle in rural Algeria, that he wrote his masterwork, the Muqaddimah, the introduction to a much larger history of the world. He wasn't writing about economics. He was trying to found something closer to a science of civilization itself. An answer to a question that had haunted every court he'd ever served in. Why do dynasties rise, peak, and then, reliably, fall apart? His answer centered on a single concept, asabiyyah, usually translated as social cohesion or group solidarity. Tight-knit, hungry groups, tribes, frontier communities, upstart merchant classes, have high asabiyyah. That cohesion is what lets them outcompete to softer, more fragmented rivals and seize power. But asabiyyah decays. Ibn Khaldun observed that by the third or fourth generation, the descendants of conquerors grow up in comfort. They've never had to fight for anything. He mapped out a roughly 120-year lifespan for a dynasty, about 3 generations, before internal cohesion collapsed and a new, hungrier group took its place. Sound familiar? Modern business researchers describe almost the same pattern in family-owned companies, shirt sleeves to shirt sleeves in 3 generations. Nobody names Ibn Khaldun when they say it, but the clock he described keeps showing up. Here's where the napkin sketch comes back in. As part of his larger theory, Ibn Khaldun made an observation about taxation and decline. New dynasties tend to tax lightly, and trade flourishes as a result. But as rulers mature, they raise taxes to fund larger courts and armies, and past a certain point, higher rates stop producing more revenue and start producing less, because the tax base itself starts to shrink. It's a striking parallel to what Arthur Laffer would sketch centuries later. Worth being honest, though, Ibn Khaldun wasn't building a fiscal policy model. This was one observation inside a much larger argument about civilizational decline, not a standalone economic theory. The resemblance is real. The credit, if we're being precise, belongs less to discovery and more to independent rediscovery. So why isn't Ibn Khaldun a household name in economics or sociology departments? Partly translation lag. The Muqaddimah wasn't fully rendered into a major European language until the 19th century, partly that Western social science built its origin story around 18th century Europe, skipping over centuries of scholarship from elsewhere. Seemed to sense he was onto something unprecedented. He described having founded an entirely new science, one later scholars would build on. He just didn't know it would take 600 years. So the next time someone credits a 1974 napkin sketch with discovering the limits of taxation, remember the exiled judge who'd already watched the pattern play out, not as an isolated fiscal trick, but as one symptom of a much older question. Why does every civilization, eventually, run out of the thing that built it? Ibn Khaldun's real discovery wasn't a tax curve, it was a clock. And maybe the more useful question isn't about empires that fell centuries ago. It's this. Look at the institution you work for, the company you built, or the country you live in. Which phase is it in right now? Still hungry and cohesive, or comfortable and starting to fracture? He didn't leave us an answer, just a clock, and a warning that everyone assumes doesn't apply to them until it does.